and all is still go as we monitor our status for it. Good luck and Godspeed.
Have you ever had a premonition, a feeling that something dreadful was about to happen?
No, Mother, I have not been drinking.
Do you happen to have a pair of birds that are just friendly?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I have to go back into the past once more, just once more.
This is HitchPod, a podcast counting down the 20 best movies of the wonderful 20th century director Alfred Hitchcock. I'm Kat Jones and with me is Dan Libke, and in this episode we are comparing the 17th best Hitchcock movie, Young and Innocent, with the movie that the Oscars said was the best one from that year, and that was You Can't Take It With You.
Yes, and we'll get into You Can't Take It With You shortly, but before we do, the 16th best movie in our countdown will be coming up shortly, and we will let you know what that is at the end of the podcast. But again, as has become tradition in these these comparisons, we do like to do a little bit of a cryptic crossword clue right at the beginning to give you something to do while you listen to the podcast. So see if you can solve this cryptic clue for the 16th best Hitchcock movie before the end of the episode. The clue is, an off-key anthem contains a mistake, it's true. And that's 3 letters, 5 letters, 3 letters. So there you go. An off-key anthem contains a mistake, it's true.
So that leads us into the movie You Can't Take It With You.
Yes, that's a 1938 movie, has an IMDb rating of 7.8 out of 10 and a very good Rotten Tomatoes score of 95%. It did win the Oscar for Best Picture, which is why we're talking about it, and it also won Best Director.
And that was it, just those two?
Just those two. It was nominated for a few others, which we will go into a little bit later. But yeah, so they're the two wins, Best Picture, Best Director. It is available to stream. You can get it on Amazon, iTunes, the usual places. It stars Jean Arthur. She plays Alice Sycamore. It stars a very young Jimmy Stewart. He plays Tony Kirby.
He's very cute.
He's very cute and young. Drew Barrymore's great uncle Lionel Barrymore plays Martin Vanderhoff, and Edward Arnold plays Anthony P. Kirby. And the synopsis is, the son of a snobbish Wall Street banker becomes engaged to a woman from a good-natured but decidedly eccentric family, and boy are they eccentric, not realising that his father is trying to force her family from their home for a real estate development. Classic rom-com setup. Written by Robert Ruskin, he did the screenplay, based on a play by George Kaufman and Moss Hart. And as we alluded to earlier, it did win Best Director for Frank Capra, who is famous for feel-good movies such as It's a Wonderful Life, It Happened One Night, and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and this one. So this is very much a rom-com. Do you want to hear a tagline for it?
Yeah, it's a wacky rom-com,
It's very wacky, yep. It's almost screwball, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, tagline, you'll love them all for giving you the swellest time you've ever had. The swellest.
That's a promise.
It is.
We were just coming out of the Depression at this point, right? 1938.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even sure they knew they were coming out of the Depression.
Yeah,
They
right.
thought they were just kind of, maybe things are looking
maybe
up.
not.
The other tagline I liked, this one, a little bit underplayed. Only the magic of Frank Capra could transform this beautiful play into the finest picture of all time. Anyway, so should we go through the plot of this one?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, a little bit of spoilers to come here. So we do start with this businessman, Anthony P. Kirby. He's got some kind of scheme designed to make him even richer than he currently is. Revolves around buying up all the houses in a 12-block radius around a competitor's factory. The details aren't really important. They're slightly incomprehensible. But the key point is that there's one house owner who's refusing to sell, and Kirby's got this underling, some twitchy-eyed man, which may tie into our Hitchcock movie.
A lot of workaround for twitchy-eyed men in this era.
Yeah, so anyway, Kirby urges this twitchy-eyed man to do whatever it takes to get the house sold.
I took notes on this intro as bunch of men, yada yada.
Yes, that's pretty much it, yep. So they set that up, and this is where we also meet Grandpa Vanderhoff. He's kind of a manic pixie dream geezer.
It's such a good description.
He's popped into the bank and he doesn't want to sell his house. He also whisks away some banker who wants to be a toy maker instead. So he says, "Come back to my house. We can always use another toy maker."
I've got this cult in my basement.
Yep. So he does that, and this guy quits his job at the bank and comes and joins Grandpa. And we do also learn around here that these two men are linked in a different way, which is that Kirby's son Tony, this is young Jimmy Stewart, he's a vice president in his father's company, presumably on merit alone. And he's fallen in love with a stenographer who's Alice Sycamore, who's Jean Arthur, and she works there, and she's Grandpa Vanderhoff's granddaughter.
And she's the only one in the family with a conventional job.
Yes, yes, easily the most normal of the entire family. Anyway, Tony proposes marriage to Alice. Alice is a little bit hesitant.
That's because she's a secretary and he's her boss.
Yes.
But anyway.
Yes. She's also a little bit worried that her family might be a bit too eccentric for Tony. So they go out on a date, and Tony's kind of a little bit of an eccentric himself. He's slightly odd.
He's more eccentric than she is.
I think so, yeah. So he's going to fit in well. On this date, they kind of meet these dancing children who just pop up and hustle them out of their money. This dancing troupe of, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds.
Were they there purely to prove that Tony was not very good at finances and should get a different career?
I think so, yeah. That makes sense. Yes. After they do this kind of little dance routine with these urchins and give them some money, and then one of the urchins slaps a sign on the back of Alice that she doesn't notice is there. It's a sign that's, I can't remember what it says. Not quite kick me, but in that vein, yeah. Anyway, they Tony and Alice head off to dinner at a restaurant, and who should happen to be there at the restaurant but Tony's family, his mum and dad specifically, and a couple of their rich friends, a whole heap of their rich friends. And Alice, again, is a little bit uncomfortable with the family. She tries, and Tony sees the sign on the back, so he's trying to usher her out backwards, and they stumble over things, and it's all very comical. And to kind of get out of the situation, Tony pretends that he sees a rat, and Alice pretends, she just screams at this mysterious rat, and off they go. And that's kind of a bit of antics. Anyway, to follow that up, Tony decides that he's going to organise a dinner where his family can meet Alice's, and Alice says, okay, well, I guess we have to do that if we're going to get married. They'll have to meet at some point. But she does go out of her way to say, all right, family, stop being quite so weird when Tony's very rich parents show up. But tricky old Tony brings his parents along a day early. So everyone in Alice's family is like doing completely crazy things. There's dance lessons and
wrestling.
Wrestling and posing for portraits in semi-clad.
What a great antic! What a great prank of Tony's.
Yeah, good fun stuff from Tony. Always good to deceive your fiancé as early as possible in the marriage. That's what I find. So the Tony's parents come up. They catch them there a day early. They're not quite amused, particularly when Tony's father gets body slammed by a Russian wrestler turned dancing coach. And anyway, but they're about to leave. But the police then show up and arrest everybody. And ostensibly this is because some advertising material for the fireworks they make in the basement has been mistaken for communist propaganda. And anyway, the fireworks all go off in the basement as well, which doesn't help matters. So they're all off to prison. Everybody in the house has to go to prison.
Including the snobbish family?
Yes, which they don't appreciate much. They try and call the lawyers. They can't track down the lawyers in time, so they're all in there.
And even worse than prison, they have to listen to Grandpa lecturing them.
Grandpa gives them a very good lecture. He says, "You're no fun, Mr. Kirby," whatever your real name is. Gives them a lecture about it's more important to have friends than money. And then he gives a demonstration of that theory by he goes up in front of the judge, and the judge says, "I'm fining you $100 for your shenanigans." And all his friends from the neighbourhood have come to see him on trial. Take the hat around, gather some money, pay his fine, no problem whatsoever. And then the judge tries to understand why the Kirbys were at the house. He's like, what were you even doing there? You're far too rich to be involved with these crazy people.
And the excuse was right there. I was trying to buy their house.
Yes.
But anyway.
Yep, ignores that excuse, ignores the obvious explanation. I'm not even sure he knows that this is the house he's trying to buy, right?
Right, yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, it's all a little bit convoluted. But the most important point at this stage is that the truth is revealed about Alice and Tony, which causes some kind of tabloid sensation. Alice flees from the courtroom, rejecting Tony's proposal, says no, the wedding's off, and she just goes off to live in a different state all of a sudden. That's kind of the end of her. Moves out of the crazy family, off to live by herself.
First sensible decision anyone's made.
Yeah. So, but Grandpa can't take a hint. He's devastated. He sells the house so he can move closer to her, interstate, and he's going to bring the entire family with him. So that's what he's decided to do, which is Also bad news for all of Grandpa's neighbours. Earlier he promised, I'll never sell, so they can all continue to, rent the properties around this, because if they can't buy them all, then there's no point kicking people out. But as soon as he sells, they all get threatened with being evicted as well.
Yeah, that's their thanks for paying him off to get him out of jail.
Yep. So Kirby's got Grandpa's house now. He can evict everybody, start building his factory, and he's all triumphant about this. The business rival who was mentioned way back at the beginning of the movie, he pops up and he's been outmaneuvered. He decides to kill himself, which Kirby finds an ominous sign. He thinks, all right, maybe this business isn't all it's cracked up to be. And so as he's on the elevator up to the business meeting to sign all the important papers, he instead decides, no, I'm going downstairs and I'm going off to visit Grandpa because I've learnt my lesson. So he meets up with Grandpa at the house, which as everybody's kind of packing the moving vans and getting ready to move out. And Grandpa and Mr. Kirby have a harmonica duet for some reason. I'm not quite sure why.
And you may have thought that the death of the business rival was the dark moment of this movie. No. It's the harmonica duet.
Yes. Yeah, because that goes on and on and on. Everybody starts dancing to the music, such as it is. And Tony and Alice have somehow popped back into the house as well, and they're reconciled and everybody's happy. The sale of the house is called off. Everybody moves into Grandpa's madhouse, including Mr. Kirby and his unhappy wife.
And Mrs. Kirby somehow.
She has no choice. She has to move in as well.
Yeah.
And we are meant to believe that everybody lives happily ever after.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the movie.
It's the end of the movie, and the sequel promised to be a lot better than the original. But anyway, so what did you think? What did you think of this movie, Dan?
I don't really like stories with this kind of message. The whole just do what makes you happy and everything will work out message. It always comes off as a little naive to me.
I feel like the audience, in the Great Depression would have gone, no, that's not working out for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The problem I have with this is that almost by definition, the people who make in a position to make these kind of movies may be doing what they please and everything's working out for them. But that's not true for everybody. So most people have to apply a little bit of pragmatism to their life. And unlike Grandpa just bluntly refuses to pay his taxes at one scene. And this is supposed to be very funny. And you wacky old Grandpa.
I think he was just joking, though. Didn't he admit before that he'd paid all his taxes?
I'm not sure. I'm not convinced. I think Grandpa's a scoundrel and he belongs in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was exhausting, though, this wacky family. And, were they that funny? I mean, there was lots of slapstick.
There was lots of dancing. There was xylophone playing. There was Russian dancers with catchphrases showing up and doing wrestling moves. There was strange people in the basement building things and fireworks.
I mean, when you've got the whole palette of potential visual and verbal comedy ahead of you, you could do better, right? Do better than this. There were a few laughs, but not many, and a few laughs maybe from the verbal back and forth.
Yes, yeah. That was certainly much better than the slapstick. Didn't work at all for me. Really, I get very tired.
Not the wrestling, not the ballerina,
no,
not the sequence with the dancing children.
No, that was very dreadful.
Yeah,
anyway,
all of it not a patch on Aunt Margaret's birthday party.
Exactly. Yes. We'll come to that comparison a little bit later.
Do you think the sequence with the dancing children? That really, it felt very much like some friend of Frank Capra going, my kids are very talented.
Yep.
Haven't you got a part for them in your movie? And he's gone, oh my God.
I've got this dance class going. Let's bring all them on. They're very good, some of them.
Yes, that was definitely someone's friend, a friend of a friend.
Yeah. I guess my favourite elements were young Jimmy Stewart. I think you could tell almost instantly he was a star. Like he was easily the funniest and most. I don't know, he drew you in the most. I found most of them.
He's very charismatic in this. He was terrific. I mean, and Alice was pretty good too.
Yeah, she was good.
There was a terrible plot point. I mean, why did Grandpa sell the house? That made absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Ostensibly
to entice
just
Alice back.
I think he was going
Alice?
to move interstate to live next door to Alice, despite
ridiculous.
the fact she's fled. Yeah, it was very strange and odd. I guess the reason he sold the house was to usher forth this climactic scene where the business rival kills himself and Mr. Kirby has second thoughts.
So.
The words sink in that he has no friends.
I mean, that plot point certainly fell from the sky into this madhouse, right?
Yeah, lots of things fell in the madhouse. We did have the home sweet home sign, which kept on falling. And people
about the 20th time, wasn't it hilarious?
Yep. Yes.
The family believed in free will and having fun, and every person seeking personal fulfillment, except if you happen to be one of their servants of colour.
Yes.
That was very
that was a little bit outdated. Perhaps.
Yikes. Yeah.
Anyway, I guess my other favourite fact about this movie is that if we had both these movies on DVD, Young and innocent and You Can't Take It With You. They would be right next to one another on the shelf, so they'd be very convenient for comparison. I can't imagine many movies would be squeezing in between the two of them.
And if any of you are under the age of 30, they're right next to each other in your file on your computer.
Yes. Sort by file name.
That's right.
Scroll down. Yes.
Why was Grandpa on crutches?
Yeah, so I didn't mention in the...
Is that the MacGuffin?
He was on crutches the entire movie. I thought, all right, is this a symbol of something? Does this signify anything? Is it, a symbol of poverty? Is it like, what's it, A Christmas Carol or something?
Is he going to throw away the crutches at the end?
Is he going to walk? Is he lame? Yeah. Anyway, no, apparently just before filming began, Lionel Barrymore got some kind of hip injury and he had really bad arthritis and couldn't walk very well. So they said, all right, you've got a broken leg, and that's the story behind Grandpa's crutches.
Oh wow! It's just surprising that they didn't just write him out of the movie. Anyway,
no, he's a key player. And,
well, there was a good thing about this movie. It did make Jimmy Stewart set him on his path for greatness, right?
Yeah.
It made him a star.
Yeah. He worked in Hollywood a little bit prior to this. This was kind of his breakout role, which is great. And as I said, he was easily the best actor in the movie or the most compelling actor in the movie for me.
And really good for a rom-com role as well.
Yeah. And he's naturally comic as well. He's very funny, very good.
Do you know the best thing about the movie though?
Oh, okay, no.
They invented solar power.
That is true. Yes. So
This is 1938. Solar power was not invented till 1954. They talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah, that was the reason Jimmy Stewart didn't want to be a banker, because he wanted to continue his research on solar power.
It was quite detailed. I was really impressed.
He gave this fantastic speech about chlorophyll and how it magically takes sunlight and converts it into energy. And he says, if we could just do the same, then there'd be no more energy crisis. I'm like,
so do you think that the dudes who eventually created solar power were in the cinema that day?
They must have been.
I reckon.
They were probably there trying
age.
to work out how to make fireworks work, and that plot point was literally shoved in the basement. So I thought, wait a sec, let's move on to this.
Someone in the audience in the cinema went away and then sowed the seed for actually inventing. So we can thank Frank Capra for that. Did he deserve the Oscar just for that?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So he was on a bit of a roll. This was his third Oscar for Best Director in 5 years. So he won one for It Happened One Night in 1934, and Mr. Deeds Goes to Town in 1936. And he would later be nominated for Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So lots of people going places, Mr.'s going places. That was the next year. And then a few years after that, he was also nominated for It's a Wonderful Life, also with Jimmy. So he was on a bit of a roll.
They were. Some of those were very good movies, obviously.
Apparently so. Apparently this was the best one of this particular year. So good for him. What are some best lines from this movie? Or favourite lines? What's the worst line?
Well, by far the worst thing about the movie for me was that you will have this song, Polly Wolly Doodle, stuck in your head forever.
Yeah.
And even just preparing for this podcast, weeks after we watched the movie, I have now got this stuck back in my head again. Apart from the fact that, it's...
And not just the singing version, the harmonica version.
Harmonica version of it, ramming around in your head.
Yeah.
And everyone listening to this podcast will now have that song.
Yeah. We'll probably put it on the outro.
Apart from the fact that it's a dreadful song with origin in blackface minstrels, it's also just a really dreadful tune that you will never eradicate.
Yes.
But the worst line, I think, was by that Russian... What was his catchphrase?
His catchphrace was, "It stinks." So everything, it stinks. And he repeated that over and over. And it was presumably very funny in the time. What were some lines that aged a little better than "It stinks"?
Well, there was a sequence in the restaurant we talked about where the rats did not appear, and Tony, for some reason, was going to scream.
Yeah, he was kind of so overwhelmed with love for Alice that he couldn't keep it in anymore, and he did this kind of little, amusing thing where he said it's coming up through my legs, coming up through my stomach, coming up through my chest, it's in my throat. I'm going to scream, and it's fighting to get out, and then Alice says, "No, please don't scream," and then she screams instead. And then the waiter comes over and says, "What happened?" And then that's when Tony says, "What happened? There was a mouse." and then the waiter says, "There's a mouse in this place?" And he says, "What do you mean mouse? It was a rat this long and had hair on it, and there were 6 or 7 of them." And then they flee, and it's chaos in the restaurant. So a little bit of fun there from Tony.
Presumably Alice is attracted to Tony, reminds her of her father, her grandfather. Yeah. At one point her father says back in the house to someone who came in, "I hope you'll pardon my appearance. I couldn't find my pants down in the cellar." That's pretty classic of what they say.
Yep.
When Mr. and Mrs. Kirby arrive in the house, he basically says, I have a weak stomach, and they talk about that for a minute, and then they say, maybe you've got an ulcer. He says, I haven't got an ulcer. And then later on there's all these callbacks to, please let's not discuss Mr. Kirby's ulcer.
That was good. That was very good.
That was pretty good. Every time he mentions something, his ulcer comes back.
Yep.
And then at some point when they said, this isn't much fun, I think it was Mrs. Vanderhoff says, after all, you did come on the wrong night. It's your own fault.
Yeah. We also have when the IRS agent did show up to hassle Grandpa about his taxes.
We found out that the twitchy-eyed man sent the IRS in, right?
Like pretty much everything bad that happened. I think we're meant to believe the twitchy-eyed man was working behind the scenes. He sent the police about the fireworks as well, I think. So anyway, the IRS agent tries to explain what the taxes are used for, and he's saying, who's going to pay for all those buildings in Washington and interstate commerce and the Constitution? And Grandpa says, the Constitution's been paid for years. And as for interstate commerce, what is interstate commerce anyway? And the agent says, there are 48 states, and if it weren't for interstate commerce, nothing could go from one state to another, see? And Grandpa says, well, why not? Have they got fences?
As proven later when Alice just flees across interstate lines with no commerce happening whatsoever.
Exactly, yeah.
And just the really lovely line from the IRS agent, you haven't paid any tax, Grandpa, I don't believe in it. That really was quite good.
Yeah.
We have some other lines here. Let me find them. When Mr. Kirby gets a little bit queasy after he eats something. Did he eat something there? I think he did.
Probably.
Anyway, young man, will you get me some bicarbonate of soda? And whoever he asks says, what flavour? It's fantastic.
Yeah. I also like the conversation between Alice's mother and Mrs. Kirby at one point. So Alice's mother says, have you got any hobbies, Mrs. Kirby? And she says, I have. I'm a student of occultism. And
which was a little unexpected.
Yeah. And she says, what's that? And Alice's father pipes in, that's spiritualism, dear. And this is my favourite bit. Alice's mother says, spiritualism? Oh, why, Mrs. Kirby? I'm surprised. Everybody knows spiritualism is a fake. And she goes, I beg your pardon? And Alice's father says, now, Penny, you mustn't criticise other people's hobbies. You've got one or two of your own, And Alice's mother says, yes, but not silly ones. I very much enjoyed that. That was actually a laugh out loud moment.
That was really great. I also really like the fact that Alice and Tony had lots of nice, repartee going until about halfway through the movie, and then they just turned into this boring couple that barely spoke to each other.
Yeah. Well, that's because Tony brought his parents along a day early, and Alice was not forgiving that. So there were plenty of good lines in there.
Yeah.
Good dialogue back and forth. So that certainly helps. The Bechdel test. Does it pass? Has to have two named women who talk to each other about something besides a man.
There was loads of that. Yeah. Loads of conversation between plenty of women.
Mm-hmm. And pretty much all of them had names.
Yeah. They barely discussed men at all.
Yeah. Yep.
It's really great.
Yep. So easy win for that. Modern technology. How could modern technology change this particular plot? Do you have any suggestions?
I did think, right at the very start when there was all those men in the bank, why were they wearing sun visors, by the way?
The kind of the visor that goes on a bank teller's head as they doing on the adding machine.
I should have done some research on this. Was it from the glare of the overhead lights? I'm not sure.
I guess so. Yeah.
Was it so people couldn't see their shifty eyes, or was it to stop them getting twitchy eyes?
Maybe. Well, yeah, maybe the twitchy-eyed man was trying not using it. Yeah.
They were all on adding machines or something, and presumably now they'd be selling crypto on their phones or whatever. Yeah.
I also thought if Alice and Tony had a shared online calendar, that might have completely screwed up Tony's plan to arrive a day early.
Yes.
We'd have had to move it over in the calendar, and she might have got a notification about that, which would have messed it up. Definitely. And the other thing I thought was, instead of building fireworks in the basement, maybe they're building apps for phones and stuff, just hacking away, making little online games with. Although Grandpa probably wouldn't let them have in-app purchases, that's probably a little bit too financially sensible of them. So it probably wouldn't be very lucrative, but they'd have good fun while they were doing it.
Yes, I don't think they sold any of their toys anyway.
No.
Yeah.
Tributes, homages, remakes. Well, I was adapted from a stage play, right? A Pulitzer Prize.
A radio play?
No, it was adapted from a stage play, which won a Pulitzer Prize. Yep. And then it was later adapted into a radio play. So there's back and forth plays, radio plays, movies. Yep. All kinds of things.
A lot of the movies in those days went into radio plays afterwards, which I would have thought it would have gone the other way, but
I guess TV wasn't as big back then, right? So if you've got a successful movie and you want it to live on a bit longer, maybe you do make a radio play.
It was the equivalent of putting your movie on TV.
Yeah. And the terrible line, Confidentially, She Stinks. That was reused in Looney Tunes cartoons. Lots of Bugs Bunny use out of that one, so that's probably where it belongs.
So the worst line from the movie?
Yep.
Okay.
It was recycled in many Bugs
Doesn't
Bunny
surprise
cartoons.
me. Yeah.
Yes.
Reminder of why I hate those cartoons.
All right, so we'll continue on into the Oscars movie cinematic universe. So after each Oscar-winning movie that we watch, we do try and link them all together. We've had what have we had? We've had The Godfather. We've had Wings. We've had whatever the last month's was about the drunk. The Lost
Weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now we've got You Can't Take It With You. Do we have any links for those ones?
Do you think the sensible guy from The Lost Weekend works in that finance company?
Oh, almost certainly. What was his name? His name was Wick.
Wick.
Yeah. I thought perhaps Wick, because Wick does leave Don for the weekend. He says, "I'm fed up with you,
See you
Don. I'm
later.
out of here."
On holidays.
I thought maybe he might pop over to visit the You Can't Take It With You family. I think maybe that's the
the
kind
Kirbys or the Vanderhoffs?
Oh, the Vanderhoffs. So
Yep.
I feel like, they're the kind of family who might take in a guy who needs to get away from his drunken brother for a few days.
Yes, yeah. They definitely have an Airbnb on the side.
Definitely. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't even charge for it. That's the kind
You
of
sleep on
family
a
that-
couch in the basement.
Yep.
Got to
All
look
kinds of
after
antics.
the fireworks
Yeah.
if you want to take
And,
it out.
and I also think, if you did go away for a few days with them, that might also make him willing to go back after a few days with them as well.
Yes.
I'll go back to my drunken brother now. This is
Yep.
this is even worse.
Absolutely. Well, we've got the Hitchcock movie checklist next, haven't we?
Yes. So what's first on that one?
The MacGuffin. Do we have a MacGuffin, something that's interchangeable? It could be anything, and the characters are pursuing it.
Yeah, I thought probably the sale of the house is close to a MacGuffin. It's a weird coincidence. It's a very strange coincidence that the film has these two families intertwined on both the rom-com level and the business level. Like, you only need the fact that they're in love, that brings the two families together. You don't really need the business level. That seems a very weird coincidence that the one family who won't sell this house to him is the family that his son just happens to be about to marry into. Very strange.
Yes, but I think that's a key plot point, isn't it?
Yeah,
I suppose you don't really need it.
It's very borderline.
Maybe the MacGuffin is the reason that he's trying to buy the house.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
Because God only knows. I certainly didn't understand that reason.
Movies without MacGuffins should not win Oscars.
It definitely not. Yes.
There was no cameo.
No
right?
cameo.
Capra doesn't do that.
Oh well, he did. He
Oh.
was in It Happened One Night. Apparently, he was a bus singer, which I assume is a singer who's on a bus.
Yeah.
I haven't seen It Happened One Night. So I think he could have been in this one. He could have been at the restaurant with all the invisible rats and screaming and something. Anyway, or he could have been in the background of this house for all I know. There were so many crazy things going on.
There were.
Mother characters.
We have a couple. We have Mrs. Kirby, who's the disapproving, snobbish character who does an improbable turnaround in the final scene. We also have Alice's mother, who does all sorts of hobbies and nothing useful.
Yeah, so she was delivered a typewriter one day and she just suddenly decided, mistakenly delivered a typewriter, I think, and then she decided, oh, well, I'm a playwright now, and she's been writing a play for...
She just kept that typewriter. I mean, someone's missing that typewriter, lost their job.
It makes her happy.
Lost
doesn't
money.
matter. Doesn't matter.
Both
Makes
of
her
these
happy.
mothers are dreadful.
Yes.
Much worse than any Hitchcock mother. Yet Capra is never criticised for his mother issues.
No.
Well,
Anyway,
maybe he is.
who knows?
Not
Anyway.
as much as Hitchcock is.
No. Birds and animals.
Loads
Loads?
of birds and animals.
What have we got?
We had a crow on someone's shoulder at some
That's
point.
right. I forgot about that.
I can't remember if it flew around. I presume it
Yeah,
did.
no, the bird was in the house the whole time. It would come over to the dinner table and it would
Yeah.
have us look around and someone would shoo it away and it'd fly elsewhere. Yeah, I forgot about the crow.
Yeah, excellent.
You got to have a crow in your wacky house.
You do. There was also a kitten on a typewriter.
I don't even remember the kitten on the typewriter, but I believe you.
Oh, yeah. And there was a dog at one
Okay.
point. I didn't write any more notes, but there was a dog.
So lots of animals. We also had the non-existent restaurant rats as well. So
Yeah.
plenty of animals and birds. Lead character at a standstill or on the run.
Yes, well, Alice goes on the run towards the end of the movie. She disappears.
She's out of there. She's
Yep.
fleeing. The tabloids are after her and she's fleeing interstate.
And Tony?
Tony's kind of at a standstill because
Yeah.
he does want to research his solar power stuff, but instead he's trapped in the family business. He's this vice president. So, yeah. So
And he's also falling for the unfortunate trope of falling for your secretary.
Yeah. That is a bit of a worry. Characters with elements of good or bad. Everybody's pretty black and white in this, right? I think we're supposed to believe that Grandpa's philosophy is be whimsical, don't pay your taxes. I think that's the key to a happy life. And he's pure and white and good, and everyone is supposed to love Grandpa.
Yeah.
And Mr. Kirby is black and bad and evil and wants money.
Except when we discover that he plays the harmonica, somehow that turns
makes them
him
both
round.
evil.
Yeah, I think it does make them both evil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have a smart young woman though. That is Alice, I think.
Yes, the most normal member of her family.
Yeah, probably not the ballerina character, whoever that is, the sister. But we did have some bumbling cops, right?
Yes. I mean, their arrival kind of triggers all these fireworks explosions. I can't remember how they did that. I think that they picked up a firework that hadn't gone off. I don't remember the details now, but anyway, definitely bumbling cops. We also had staircases, not really major staircases. There was a staircase that led upstairs to the bedrooms in the house, and also stairs that went down to the basement, but nothing major. We do have some tropes, courtesy of tvtropes.org, though, some other tropes.
Excellent.
We've got community-threatening construction. This is how Kirby's plans threaten the entire neighbourhood, so his new building will destroy the community.
Pretty common trope, yeah.
Very common trope. We've got the Husky Rusky. That's the dancer. It stinks. We do have a quirky household. You don't get much quirkier than this household. We've got the reason you suck speech. I love the reason you suck speech.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
This is the speech that Grandpa gives Kirby in jail. He says, this is why you suck. It's because you like money. And twitchy eye is a trope, and it was definitely in play here. So there you go. That's You Can't Take It With You. We've pretty much covered that.
Yeah.
So this is where we compare Young and Innocent with You Can't Take It With You and see which one is the better movie in our opinion, and what Young and Innocent might have done if it wanted to win some Oscars, wanted to steal some of You Can't Take It With You Oscar buzz.
Yes, and if you want to see a good movie from this year, go watch Young and Innocent. We love that movie.
Yeah.
Young and Innocent, of course, by Alfred Hitchcock, did not get any nominations, correct?
No nominations for that one.
Anyway, I think, obviously Hitchcock did borrow from You Can't Take It With You when he borrowed Jimmy Stewart for future movies.
Yep, very savvy move on his part.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
I think Hitchcock would have seen this movie and said, I can do better than this. I think that Hitchcock probably, if he'd made You Can't Take It With You, he would have renamed this Young and Bored because that's what Jimmy Stewart was at the start of the movie. He was young and he was bored.
Yes.
And he said as much to his secretary.
Yeah. This movie was nominated for Best Writing of a Screenplay. So a very good plan to adapt your screenplay from a Pulitzer Prize-winning play, I guess. That's certainly going to help you in the Oscars. So maybe Hitchcock should have found more Pulitzer Prize-winning plays and tried to adapt them. We did have the Best Supporting Actress nomination, and for this movie, I think that was Alice's mother got that Best Supporting Actress role, which seems improbable, but...
Really?
Yep. Anyway, so in comparison, I would have thought Aunt Margaret from Young and Innocent, and I would have thought she should have won that
so
particular
I guess
Oscar.
Aunt Margaret should have done a few more ballerina moves or wrestling maybe at the birthday party.
Yeah, should have been writing a play the entire, during the birthday party. Who knows? Should have been doing something wackier anyway.
Yeah.
I guess if Hitchcock did want to win it, he did need to make his birthday party far more whimsical. Yeah, to get some Russian wrestler dancing coaches and firework makers and the like in there. That's obviously the key. And as we mentioned, both movies did have villainous, twitchy-eyed men. Hitchcock's was a murderer, and Capra's was just a banker, which some would argue.
I think
maybe
Capra's
worse.
had also done murder at some point.
Probably,
he was very dodgy.
But not on screen, right? Not explicit in the movie. And maybe that was enough. Maybe there's lots of twitchy-eyed voters at the Academy, so maybe you've got to be a little bit kinder to twitchy-eyed voters than Hitchcock was.
That's true. Did you notice that at the very end of You Can't Take It With You, Tony comes in wearing a raincoat?
No, I don't remember that.
He comes in wearing a raincoat with a belt very similar to Young and Innocent.
Oh, fantastic.
So I think that's probably where Hitchcock got
But
the
had
idea
the belt
from.
though, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the belt's the key to winning an Oscar. Maybe if you've got a raincoat with a belt on, you win an Oscar. If you've got a raincoat with a belt missing, you don't.
You don't, yeah.
Very sad. Anyway, I definitely preferred Young and Innocent to You Can't Take It With You.
Yeah,
so
same.
Sorry about that, Capra. So let's rank the Oscar movies. So we've so far had 3. Where are we going to slot this one in? Where are you slotting this one in?
At the moment, I've got Wings as my number 1, and I'm putting You Can't Take It With You as number 2 because I actually don't really like The Godfather or The Lost Weekend very much.
Yep, okay. I have The Godfather first, Wings second. I will put You Can't Take It With You third. And it's only just ahead of The Lost Weekend for me. I really didn't like this very much.
Yeah, I've kind of got Wings and then Daylight and about 20 Alfred Hitchcock movies, and then You Can't Take It With You, The Godfather and The Lost Weekend.
Yeah.
Anyway, our next movie will be the 16th best Hitchcock movie, is voted on by our listeners. And we gave a cryptic clue at the start of the podcast. An off-key anthem contains a mistake. It's true. 353. Tell us the solution for this, Stan.
Well, the answer is The Wrong Man, and that's built up as follows. So off-key is an anagram indicator, which suggests we rearrange the word anthem. Rearrange anthem, you can get the man. And contains a mistake means we put a word meaning mistake in the man, which gives the wrong man. And it's true means it's a true story, which is what it is. And it is also true that when we watched this the first time, we didn't rank it that highly, did we?
No, it wasn't in my top 20. I think it was 43rd for me.
Yes, I barely escaped into the top 50 for me. I had a 49th. I really didn't like this one, so I'm glad all you listeners like it. And we will definitely give it another shot. We will rewatch it. That's The Wrong Man from 1956. And maybe our opinions will improve on a rewatch, and we will let you know that next month.
And we usually do improve our opinions on the
so
rewatch.
far, yeah.
So far. Anyway, if you have any questions or feedback on The Wrong Man, feel free to email them in. You can send that to feedback@hitchpodonline.com. And we will talk about that in our next episode, whatever anyone emails us.
Yep.
Is there a book?
Well, there was a book at the time. It's called The True Story of Christopher Emmanuel Balistrero, and that was by Maxwell Anderson, but it's long out of print and almost impossible to find. So
Thank God for that.
We will not be reading that book. So I did peek a little bit ahead and notice that there wasn't really a book associated with this one. So we will continue reading A Shilling for Candles, which was the one associated with Young and Innocent. And all the discussion of that is over at our Patreon feed. That's patreon.com/HitchPod. And that's also where we will do a live post-viewing discussion of The Wrong Man with our patrons. So if that interests you, feel free to sign up and we will speak to you then.
Thank you for listening to HitchPod. Please come and talk to us on Twitter at HitchPodTweets or on Facebook by searching for HitchPod. And you can also email us directly at feedback@hitchpodonline.com. And if you want more Hitchcock content, please consider becoming a HitchPod supporter. Just go to patreon.com/HitchPod. And for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Season 1 coverage of every single Hitchcock movie, as well as bonus episodes on Hitchcock-esque movies. Invitations also to watch live rewatches and much, much more.